So, some of you caught the conversation that me and Cynthia G had last night as per Black fatherhood and the absentee fathers in the Black community. And I had got a couple messages that people were complaining about me putting up statistics. And I'm not the type person that just wants to run around here putting up statistics, because technically you can go research anything that you want to out here. And I do feel as though it makes people lazy as fuck. They want us to do everything for them. But what I've done, and today on my Facebook page, I shared 3 links that talked about how Black fathers, in comparison to all the other fathers here in America, actually are more active than any other group of fathers out here. And this information doesn't get to go viral. This information is not something that is going to be shared even within the Black community, because it's about Black men. And who really has time to, big up Black men or speak positively about things that Black men are doing? And a lot of people will say that debunking of this myth is unreal because it's never been a myth. And I think that the myth aspect of this is the oversaturation, the over propaganda that is, or the excessive amount of propaganda that is used to paint Black fathers in a negative light, as a monolith in a negative light. So I have 2 videos that I will be sharing here. That way you can see how the myth, we're not going to call it a myth, or we'll see how the propaganda started as per Black men being unanimously and all-inclusively known and for being Black, or for being deadbeat fathers. I think that's disingenuous. So check out these 2 videos. The first one is going to be about 1.5 minutes. The second one will be, I think it's about 9 minutes long. I will be breaking in between those 2 videos. That way, if you don't want to see the information, or you don't give a fuck about the information, of course, you do not have to watch the information. But I will ask that you at least make the attempt to absorb the information. That way, we can have a better frame to put this conversation in. All right. Check out this first video. It's about 1.5 minutes long, and I'll be back.
Hey guys, what's going on? I'm Tamara Dia for Complex News. With racial tension at an extreme high in America right now, it's always refreshing to see a stereotype get completely debunked. In a study conducted by the Center for Disease Control, the myth that Black men are absent fathers was dispelled. When news outlets report on Black fatherhood, it's often depicted as a crisis, further reinforcing the idea that Black men are not there to raise their children. But the data that the CDC gathered paints quite a different picture. In the study, built upon years of research, the results indicated that Black dads are actually more involved with their kids on a daily basis than other racial groups. From changing diapers to playing with their children to helping with homework, Black fathers were statistically more hands-on than white and Latino fathers. Tara Culp-Ressler of Think Progress noted that equal numbers of Black dads and white dads tend to agree that it's important to be a father who provides emotional support, discipline, and moral guidance. There's one area of divergence in the way the 2 groups approach their parental responsibilities. Black dads are even more likely to think it's important to financially provide for their children. The study also compared dads that were living with their kids and those who were not, and Black fathers were still significantly more present. So for those arguing that the turmoil occurring in places such as Ferguson, Baltimore, and Black communities across America is a result of absent, ineffectual fathers, I'm talking to you, Rand Paul. Maybe it's time people stop pointing all the blame at underprivileged parents who are just doing their best to raise their children, and take an honest inventory of what's really holding these communities back.
So that was the first 1.5 minute long video, and you can see there their statistic. The CDC did a report that shows that the absentee Black father is an overused generalization of Black fatherhood as a whole. I have another one here that's about 9 minutes, 9.5 minutes long. Again, if you don't want to watch it, that's fine. But at least try to take this information in so we can get a better frame to put this conversation in, because right now I do believe that it is framed incorrectly. So check out this video, and I'm going to come back in here and I have some more words for you guys.
One of the most pervasive stereotypes about Black Americans is that of the absent Black father.
The absent Black father myth is the idea, the stereotypical and incorrect notion that African American fathers have very little contact with their children, if any contact at all.
And in Black America, the reality of being fatherless is perhaps most painful.
73% of all Black babies are born out of wedlock.
Experts say there's a crisis when it comes to Black fathers in this country.
The news media loves asking where all the Black fathers are, and that whole idea has been linked to everything from poverty and crime to even police violence against Black communities.
Why are these police shootings occurring? Well, it's because there is an absent Black father, or it's because Black families are on welfare.
But this idea that Black fathers aren't present in their kids' lives is actually false.
To be a parent is to have children that you love and try and support. And Black fathers experience that the same way that anyone else would. Why would you even think there was a difference?
Hey guys, I'm Sana, and this Sunday on AJ Plus, we're gonna talk about the myth of the absent Black father here in the United States, where it comes from, and how that stereotype tells a much bigger story about the Black family and Black communities in this country. Just because the trope of the absent Black father is so pervasive doesn't mean it's true. Now, yes, according to a Centers for Disease Control report, in 2013, 72% of non-Hispanic Black women who gave birth were unmarried. But being an unmarried mother doesn't automatically mean that the father isn't involved. And in fact, that's exactly what that CDC report found. When compared to white or Hispanic fathers, Black fathers were actually more likely to be involved in their children's lives in almost every way. They were even more likely to have bathed, diapered, or dressed their kids, eaten a meal with them, played with them, helped them with homework, and taken them to and from activities. And a lot of that held true even when Black fathers didn't live with their children. But if we go solely off of what we see in the news media—
Where's your dad?
Don't really know.
Tell me about that.
He's just not around.
You wouldn't really see Black fathers in that way. Communications professor Travis Dixon studies the prevalence of stereotypes in mass media and the impact of these stereotypes on audiences. He wrote this report, A Dangerous Distortion of Our Families, and in it he found that almost all news and opinion media implicitly or explicitly encourages pretty egregious assumptions about Black fathers. Black fathers were shown spending time with their kids only half as often as white fathers, contrary to, well, the actual facts.
We found that Black mothers, white fathers interacted with their kids about 26% of the time in these videos and photos that occurred in the news media. Half as often, we found that happening for Black fathers. Only about 14% of the time were Black fathers actually interacting with their kids on camera in photos.
Dixon also found that news commentary singled out Black fathers 60% of the time compared to white fathers only 20% of the time.
What has it been like since your dad's been in jail?
Can a father's love break through prison walls?
That media distortion is substantial. We know for a fact that African American fathers are just as likely to participate in the lives of their children than fathers of other races.
And this isn't, by the way, a politically partisan issue. Both conservative news outlets like Fox News and more centrist ones like CNN were top distorters, specifically Hannity, The Kelly File, and CNN Tonight.
Did both of you have fathers present in your lives growing up?
So where does this toxic idea about Black fathers even come from? Well, one theory takes it back to a 1965 report titled The Negro Family, The Case for National Action. The report became one of the most contentious political documents in 20th century America. Democrat and Assistant Secretary of Labor Daniel Patrick Moynihan put the report together to make the argument for how the Lyndon B. Johnson administration had to do more for racial equality than simply pass the Voting Rights Act. Moynihan argued that to really fight racial inequality, the government had to understand the state of Black communities and why they were the way they were. But Moynihan ended up focusing on one thing: the Black family. According to him, the fundamental reason for growing economic inequality between white and Black Americans was a crumbling family structure in Black communities. And at the foundation of the so-called crumbling Black family structure was the absent Black father. Moynihan looked at non-marital birth rates and rates of fathers living separately from their children and made a whole bunch of assumptions about parents' relationship statuses and parental parental involvement. The report didn't take into account factors like the legacy of slavery, generational wealth, or even economic migration in which men left their homes so that they could provide for their families. We spoke to Carvel Wallace, a writer and a podcaster, about the way Black families have been discussed in the mainstream.
Reading some of the literature at that time, I was like shocked at how overtly racist liberal literature was in terms of trying to diagnose the ills of the Black community and trying to explain why these uprisings were happening. And everyone was blaming it on the fathers and drugs and families and welfare and mothers and everything. It was a lot more convenient for the story to be told that Black people weren't holding up their end of the bargain rather than acknowledging that America wasn't holding up its end of the bargain.
The Moynihan Report ultimately created three camps: the liberal camp, which saw the report as a foundation for policy change; the conservative camp, which saw the report as a justification for the argument that Black communities were responsible for their own issues; and then the left-wing camp that saw the report as blaming the victim, ignoring structural racism, and actually reinforcing racism. So what happens when people are exposed to these stereotypes about Black families? Aside from the reinforcement of the idea that Black communities have no one to blame but themselves, there's the everyday real-life impact these stereotypes have through policies and support for those policies. First, there's an almost total willful ignorance about the impact of slavery and modern-day incarceration on Black American families. Foundationally, slavery ripped apart Black families, and mass incarceration has put 1 in 12 Black men between the ages of 25 and 54 in prison, versus 1 in 60 for non-Black groups. Then there's how these characterizations of Black American families have an impact on policies that affect all Americans. Take poverty, for instance. During the Great Depression era, the face of poverty was a white man who was down on his luck, or a white family fallen victim to circumstances outside their control. And the country felt a duty to end poverty, namely with President Franklin D. Roosevelt's New Deal. Then, decades later, Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. began to shed light on the reality of poor Black American families living in cities, and the reporters who followed him began to report on these issues.
We are tired of living in run-down, dilapidated, rat-infested shacks and slums.
And as a result of that, over time, all of the imagery began to focus on these Black families, and it began to actually have a pernicious impact. It began to have us think of poverty and Black families as tied to this issue of Black laziness. And that's where we largely find ourselves today.
According to Pew, more than half of Republicans believe a lack of effort is to blame for poverty instead of circumstances beyond one's control. As the conversation on poverty and race shifted, so did the support for welfare.
People began to think that we needed to curb welfare benefits, increase work requirements, because the real problem is that Black people are on welfare and they want to just be lazy. When we think about policies, what's good for families, we tend to think about them in these racialized terms. And when we do that, we tend to have a distorted view of what needs to happen.
So what's the solution? Well, here's what Dixon and Wallace had to say.
The main way that the media perpetuates stereotypes and racist tropes is accidentally. I think the people who are in the decision-making rooms and the content-making rooms are carrying these biases with them without knowing they're carrying them with them because there's no one around to challenge them. So I think that ultimately greater diversity at all levels of decision-making in the media and content process is probably our best chance of dealing with this.
As an African-American father myself, as the father of twin sons, I take pride in that role, and I know many other Black fathers who take pride in being involved with their kids, regardless of the marital situation with the mother. And so I really would like the media to show some of those stories as well.
Ultimately, I'm raising my kids to be a part of the solution rather than a part of the problem. You know, that's really all I can do.
So there were 2 reports done. I went and found videos, so y'all didn't have to go read anything. I guess, of course, you can go read more if you want to Google any of this information. It's out there. There's nothing really being hidden, but this is not the information that's being put out there on a viral level, a viral basis. And one thing I noticed in the comments on both of these videos, whenever I got the videos, I noticed in the comments that people were still personalizing. They said, well, my dad still wasn't there. And one of the things that we do as human beings is that we will personalize and we will say, well, shit, my daddy wasn't there, my friend's daddy wasn't there, my cousin daddy wasn't there, so this is most Black people, so this is the information that needs to be put out there, especially if you're experiencing that pain, that hurt. But in reality, I'm not saying there aren't 100% of black men active in their children's lives, but the narrative that black men just automatically, we are the deadbeats of society, is just false. And the society has done a very good job of painting this narrative up, and also using the pain and the hurt of people who don't have fathers in their lives to push this same toxic narrative. And to me, it's just, it's complete and utter bullshit. Now, again, this information won't be something that you guys will let go viral. If this was a video about how a black man had neglected his child or left his child, or you'll see TV shows where you'll have black men that have all these kids by all these different women, well, all that shit will be put on the forefront. These men, or supposed men, will be the representation for the entire black fatherhood, the entire community of black fathers. They will be the representation, because that information, those images are pushed forward. This stuff won't go viral. Y'all won't even make it viral, because black people really don't give a fuck. We are very comfortable having negative opinions about the opposite sex as parents. We don't have an issue with that. We don't see how detrimental having this attitude towards each other really is, and the effects that it has on our community. But the information is here. So there is no real reason for this to continue, even though I know it will. Even though that even on this video, there will be people who will still decide to look at this thing negatively, who will still decide to personalize the fact that their father may have walked out, or he may have went absentee, or he got gone, or didn't even try to be a father to them in their lives. And those opinions will be the ones that's pushed out to the forefront. Black men, you don't have many friends out here. You don't have many friends. There are a lot of images of us that we allow to be put on the forefront, because black men could be dispelling this image of black men as absentee fathers. We could be doing that every day, not only as to sharing data, but also being those fathers that we say that are present. We can just be those things and try and make the attempts to be in our children's lives. We can also do it that way. But I'm very, very tired of seeing everybody out here talking about that black men ain't worth a fuck as fathers. They just gone. It's all bullshit. It's not true. Well, I won't say it is not true, but what I will say is, versus every other race of men in this country, we're more active than them. So what the fuck do y'all have to say about them? That's my question, because you never really hear anything about them. And this society has been very, very maniacal and very ingenious almost as to how they've been able to push certain narratives, and our people pick up the same narratives and we'll funnel them on forward regardless. White supremacists don't even have to really do much. We'll do it for them. Because your experience, your negative experience, is the black experience. It is the black fatherhood experience. It's because your father left, and that's one thing that we have to stop doing. Or your baby daddy, he left. Your husband, he left. Or whatever the situation is, that does not account for all black men, all black fathers. And we need to be pushing this narrative out here in society as well. Even if you're going to push the one about your daddy leaving, okay, well, push this one about black men excelling every other race of man in this nation as to being in their child's life. And we have a harder battle to fight, typically, especially when we're dealing with these court systems. So give credit when credit's due. Black men are outdoing every other father, every other race of father in this nation. But ain't nobody saying shit about that. And I doubt this video will even make people start saying anything about it, because, again, it's the black man. And ain't nobody really have a vested interest into raising the image of the black man. But as a black father myself, and as a man, as a black man who sees other black fathers out here giving it their all, see other black fathers out here trying, I can start the conversation, at least. Again, I've given you the information. You have the numbers. Are y'all now going to come out here and say, or be proud, that black men do go harder than every other group of fathers in this nation? Or will we continue to push the narrative that black men equals deadbeat father. And that's the myth that's being debunked here. Let's again not get caught up in semantics of the word myth and what that is. The myth is black men equal deadbeat father. That's the myth that's being dispelled, not the fact that there are some black men out here who are deadbeat fathers. That's not what it is. That's not what's going on. So let's not get caught up on little bullshit like that, because that's not what's being said here. Spread the information if you feel like it's important enough to spread. Most definitely. And keep in mind that we can control this narrative. We just have to spread the information more so than we do spread a bunch of bullshit out here. All right? That's all the fuck I want to say, y'all. Shout out Team Rob. Y'all already know what it is. Black fathers matter. I'm living proof. All right? Mad love, y'all. See y'all next time. I'm out.